The conversation is about to heat up. Welcome to Fireside Chat Radio with Larry Biddle, Marshall Biddle, Freakin' Deacon, and Banana Jack Murphy. Who knew history could be so hot?
Hey y'all, we are back. It's that time again. We get together every once in a while and dig up a little history of Horry County and South Carolina. And this week we're continuing our conversation with the one and only Russ Bergman. His friends call him Rusty. I was told to call him Russ, so we'll just do that.
I call him Coach.
Yeah.
He's still a coach.
That, don't you? Once a coach, always a coach?
Oh, yeah.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Did you have a coach that stood out growing up, Marshall?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep. Mike Mayfield was superhuman and great guy. He passed away a couple of years ago. Hadn't seen him in a long time, but yeah, absolutely. Yeah. You know, I still think of some of the things that he taught me from first grade through, 8th, 9th, 10th high school. So
yeah. Coach
absolutely.
was kind of that third party influence.
Yep.
It was the same thing your daddy tried to teach you.
That's right.
But it was coming from a different point of view.
And I'd like to bring up a coach, Coach Jack Cook.
Yeah?
Yeah, Jack just passed away here about a week or so ago. He was 95 years old. He coached a lot of the schools. Comac Junior High is where I went, and he went on to Marshall University, coached the baseball team. They're going to name a field. I don't know when they're going to build it, but they're going to name him the field for Coach Jack Cook.
How about that?
Yeah, everybody in Huntington, West Virginia loved this guy. Well, any of his players. He was like they were all his kids.
Yep.
So, I just wanted to bring him up. He was a great guy. God rest his soul. Godspeed, my friend.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then, Larry, you coached a little bit yourself, so you have a different point of view than the rest of us.
Well, yeah, and I was thinking about my coach. It was my high school coach. His name was Jack Wittry, and Jack I was out at my 60th reunion at Bishop Armstrong High School where I played, and he married one of our classmates. So obviously he comes to our reunions, and we had we didn't have the 3-point shot then either. So we were all talking, two of us were guards. Actually, 3 of the guards were there. Normally, Jim DeRoos, who went to USF, was our center. But if we couldn't get it to Jim, we could shoot from out there, and we pretty good. But so I know I scored more than the books had. But that's the way it goes, just like Pistol Pete. And Jim DeRoos had these tapes of Maravich that he gave me. They were reel to reel. Right, for my use to give to children or grandchildren or players or whomever. I think there was about a half a dozen of them.
The Pistol Pete homework you're referring to?
Yes, yeah. Several reel-to-reel tapes, really cool. And good stuff.
Well, how about you, Coach? Did you have a coach growing up that had an influence, impact on your life?
One reason why I wanted to get into coaching. Not only my grade school and junior high coaches that I looked up to that were very influential in my life, Mr. Webb and Mr. Hartke. And I think when you go back to all your teachers, you can remember and appreciate how much they did for us growing up and teaching us right from wrong. And when I got to high school, I know I was looking up to a guy who graduated from Eastern Illinois, Monty Norn, who was a young guy right out of college that had just started coaching, and he was coaching at Raymond High School. And then what they did going into my sophomore year in high school, they took Farmersville High School and Raymond High School and consolidated 4 towns into one high school instead of 2 towns here and 2 towns there, having 2 high schools. And anyway, I know I looked up to him so much, sometimes you don't realize how much you look up to a coach, but the first time I saw myself on reel-to-reel video actually playing basketball and the way I walked and ran, I was just like that coach. So I idolized him so much. I walked like him.
Wow.
Yeah, and ran like him and all that. But anyway, therefore, that's all I did was sports. I love sports, and I wanted to be a coach just like them. And so I pretty much was set early when I went to college what I wanted to do when I got out. 2 things I wanted to do. I either wanted to be a college coach, or actually I wanted to get for my branch in the Army, I wanted to military police, because if I got the military police branch, I could become an FBI agent, which I wanted to either do that or coach, or you got to go to law school to become an FBI agent. So anyway, I ended up getting infantry, so that threw that out the window. So fortunately for me, I got into coaching, like I said, right out of the Army with my college coach, Coach Maravich, which was a huge break for me to go straight to college rather than going to college, high school, and then to get a job in college. So I started out the Division I level as an assistant coach.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's a big break for me.
Coaching is a real special thing, and it's a bond. And, fortunately for us, we had really a strong, pretty much what you would say is a nuclear family unit. But a lot of kids that come along, and this number just increases, sometimes the coach almost becomes a father of sorts.
Yeah, and that's what Brian Penny, when they brought our 91 team back for the 25th anniversary, I was in actually Doha, Qatar coaching at the time, but my wife and daughters were invited to it, and all the players, and they brought them back and honored them at halftime. And at the Hall of Fame the night before or whatever, Brian Penny made the statement that Coach Bergman was like a father to me.
Mm-hmm.
And so that always makes you feel good when you have that much influence on a kid, and the kid's done well because he's graduated from Coastal and he's been with social services in that job capacity ever since, and he'll be probably retiring for too much longer. But I know as a coach, and especially dealing with college players, I try to really emphasize to them at Coastal Carolina to make sure that you contribute to society when you graduate and not take from it, because I'm one of the people that's very much against all the handouts and people wanting a handout. And so I try to make sure my players contribute to society rather than take from it.
Sure.
Yeah, great.
Well, you said family. And, boy, some coaches travel from one part of the country to the other and back and forth. That can be a little tricky. You got to have a good support system back home when you're a coach.
No question about it.
A lot of nights away from home.
Right.
And weekends.
Yes.
And weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And summers.
There's no question. The families, no matter it's a high school coach, college coach, professional coach, whether it's the wife or the sons or daughters, they sacrifice a lot for their husband, or could be the other way around, could be the woman that's a coach. But for them being away as much as and how much time and effort that they have to put in, because anybody that interviews for a coaching job, it's never a 9-to-5 job.
That's right.
You have to understand you're going to work weekends and any time. And like I've told many assistants, I said, here's your job description, and then the very last thing it says, or whatever I ask you to do.
Other duties as assigned.
That's right.
Yeah. And so, and it's like I told my assistant once, I've decided I want you to go to Charlotte and watch UNC Charlotte. I want to see them one more time before we play them. And he wasn't too excited about driving up there and driving back. I said, well, that's something you got to do in this business. And so anyway, it's just like going to see a recruit. Sometimes you have to go see a recruit 5-10 times or whatever. So they know you're there, more interested in them than the other college is. Maybe the one college is there 4 times, you're there 10 times. So he thinks, he wants to be more.
Yeah.
So you go to that college. So it's just a lot of time, a lot of effort, and typically in my situation, the wife has to sacrifice, and she was a retired first grade teacher, so she has a lot of patience. So it made it a little bit easier for her.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, speaking of family of coaches, before we head to Russia and talk about your career over there, how about the D'Antonis? Now, that's a good local bunch that people are familiar with. Dan, Sockasty High School, and then his brother Mike. And, of course, now he's coaching, Dan is coaching the Thundering Herd basketball team and doing very well with them. You've got connections with those boys, haven't you?
Yeah, 3 brothers.
Yeah.
Danny being the oldest, and had a great career as a player at Marshall. And then I think he was the last cut when he came out of college with the Philadelphia 76ers. He almost made it into pro ball then, but did not. And then Mike, who also played at Marshall, was a great All-American there and went on to play in the NBA and ABA, and then played over in Italy, made a name for himself there. brought the European game actually to the NBA. He's the one with the big change in the way the game's played in the NBA today. That's credit to Mike D'Antoni.
Mm-hmm.
And so Mike, being an assistant in the NBA, was fortunate he got a head job and really ran with it and really did well. And of course, he brought his older brother in, Danny. And then if I backtrack a little bit, while Danny was at Socastee High School, and we got to be friends, and we actually played a lot of tennis against each other. And anyway, he had a younger brother, the youngest brother named Mark.
Mm-hmm.
And Mark was a very good high school player, and we recruited him and gave him a 4-year scholarship, and he played 4 years at point guard at Coastal Carolina, and was a great student, and went from Coastal on to law school and got his law degree and practices back in Charleston, West Virginia, and is doing very, very well for himself. So, of course, as you well know, Danny, who was at Socastee High School, followed his brother into the NBA. His brother brought him in, and then when Danny left the NBA, he became the head coach at Marshall University and has done a great job at his alma mater, doing a great job there, and is very successful to this day.
So he's got a nice house. So he's invited me to come up and stay there. So you got to stay there first. You got his hotel there.
Yeah, he's got a mansion up there on
That's
the hill.
what I heard. Yeah.
Very nice. Very, very nice.
I got to check it out. I'm going to have to go. Do they serve breakfast in the morning?
If he's invited you, you need to go, because he's a great host, that's for sure, and so is his wife, and you'd be very fortunate to be able to spend the night with him.
That'd be cool. Yeah, myself and Alan Smothers. Boy, that's going to be a
So
team,
you didn't add that to the story. Yeah.
Well, Alan Smothers, that makes ride going up there a little bit longer and coming back. Doesn't it?
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
yeah,
boy.
I said, you ought to go. And then you said, well, Alan Smothers is going to do the driving.
Yeah.
And I went, Doug still go.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
No, Alan Smothers is a diehard sports nut, and you got to love the guy. He's very enthusiastic, a lot like Dick Vitale. He
Sure.
he really promotes, especially the beach ball class.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And on our last show with Coach Bergman, when we were talking about, NCAA rules and stuff,
Right.
Smothers would have immediately launched into a Tar Heel tirade. Yeah. Yeah. Those wonderful books up there in Chapel Hill, but not one NCAA rule book to be found.
That's right.
It's sort of another day.
Yeah.
Well, we got to head over to the Big Pond, but before we do that, you threw up, Coach D'Antoni, Beach Ball Classic.
That's right.
That's
Danny,
you were around in those early days.
I was, and actually the first Beach Ball Classic was held in our gymnasium at Coastal Carolina, and it was mainly, I think it was Danny's brainstorm. I don't know who all was with Danny when they decided to do it, but they stuck their neck out and said, we're going to try to provide Horry County with the best high school basketball in the nation and try to start this Beach Basketball Classic and bring in great teams. And Danny got it started. They brought in some great teams the first year, and it just mushroomed from there. And then he got John Rhodes involved in it, the mayor of Myrtle Beach, and it even got bigger and better. And, of course, Danny was so busy when he left here as a high school coach and went to the NBA, then he needed somebody like John Rhodes to take over and actually run it because he couldn't be here. But anyway, it's going to be a big challenge for everybody involved in the Beach Ball Classic to run a good one this year with John Rhodes, who unfortunately passed away last year via COVID.
Yeah, it's going to be a real challenge.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have a tremendous story you'll love about John Rhodes. Okay, when I was coaching at Coastal, all right, my first year, he was on the team, and he was a guard. And so I forget who we were playing, one of the regional campuses. And John, we got to go, and he was a guard, And after about 3 minutes, I called timeout, and they all came over. And I said, John, you're supposed to be playing out there as the guard. You're not the coach. I'm the coach. He said, oh. I said, get the ball where it's got to go. Get it inside or shoot from out there, but you're out there directing traffic and everything else. I said, you're not the coach, John. Okay, yeah, I know. Okay, I'm sorry. But see, that was what was coming out, Russ, is that leadership stuff that John had to put it all together, which is huge.
Yeah, that didn't surprise you though, did it?
No, it did not. Not a bit. No,
and he's probably got a Pistol Pete story.
Yeah.
If he was still around to tell, because he was up there.
That's right.
When all that was going on.
Yeah.
We grew up about 22 miles from each other. Never knew each other till we got here.
Wow.
Well, he did mention something about Pistol Pete at one time. We did an interview with him on the radio, and I think he did mention Pistol Pete.
He did.
Yeah.
He had some great stories.
Well, the reason why everybody knew Pistol Pete in Raleigh, because Coach Maravich, who was at Clemson, who finally got him to the finals of the ACC tournament and was recognized as a good coach because of that, because they didn't have too many resources or great players at Clemson compared to Duke and NC State and North Carolina and Wake Forest. Everett Case saw that Coach Maravich had a great basketball mind, and so he said, Coach, I want you to come with me to NC State because I'm failing a little bit. My health's not good.
Right.
He said, excuse me, if you will come in here and be my assistant, I can guarantee you're going to be the head coach before very long because my health is just not very good. And so he left a head job at Clemson to become a assistant at NC State, and the story did happen that way. He ended up taking over for Coach Everett Case because his health did fail and he had to take over as head coach.
Had some success up there as well.
And of course, because he moved to Raleigh, his whole family moved to Raleigh, and that's where he brought Pistol Pete with him. And there's stories about Pete playing against NC State varsity when he was, still in high school and doing very, very well.
Sure, good stories, legendary stories. Yeah, and so John Rhodes had some great stories. Loved basketball and was an NC State fan. I hate to admit it. There, but he was a huge NC State fan. Good to see you out there on the sidelines. It is unique. That tournament has brought a lot of high-profile programs. Well, they travel down here. I've seen, some like a who's who of college coaching alongside the court.
It's just like when where players play the game, they follow the money, and coaches follow the players that are good players. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't matter where the kid is at. He could be in Rain, South Carolina.
Yep.
And if he can play, coaches are going to find out about it, and they're going to go watch him play to verify he can play. And that's why they come to the Beach Ball Classic, because they've had every team that's invited has at least one or two college players. They're going to be college players on it. And so therefore you have all the major colleges plus a lot of other colleges coming to the tournament so they can scout it and decide which players that they might want to recruit to their program.
Well, we're going to find out here in just a second how European basketball stacks up against the NBA. You said that Mike D'Antoni had brought some of that style to the NBA. And your experience there in Russia, my goodness.
Mm-hmm. What happened was we had a great year in the CBA, Continental Basketball Association, what that stands for, which is AAA basketball in Michigan. I was just north of Flint, Michigan, coaching a team there called the Great Lakes Storm. We had a great year, and I was at the Rocky Mountain Review in Salt Lake City, and a friend of mine said that David Pendergraph, who's an NBA scout, he says, Coach, he said, there's this agent that I know from Lithuania, and he's helping this Russian find a coach to take back with him to Russia to help teach him and take his team to a higher level. He said, I've recommended you, and so they want to interview you. So I interviewed with another guy interviewed who was one of the top CBA coaches, and luckily for me, I got the job because I say luckily because they were playing a lot of rubles. So this was in the fall of 2004-2005 season. He brought me over there to help him take his team and teach his team, even though they had, players from all over Europe on their team. They also, half the team were Russians, and they need to be able to bring them together and to teach them so they can be successful not only in the Russian league, but also in the different European leagues, such as the Euro League, the Euro Cup, and the FIBA Cup, which is all the different 3 levels over in Europe. So I went over there, and I basically would take, like a computer, and we would have video, and I would take my translator and him, and he would translate what I'm teaching him. And so I'm teaching him that way, and then we'd get to practice, and I would run practice till we got to the 5-on-5 part, and then he would take over from there. And then during the games, I would also help him there also. But anyway, it all worked out. Our team had a great first year there, and so I ended up staying over there 4 years with his team, and then 3 different. Then the following year, I went to another team in Samara, Russia, and then we had a super year there. We won 2 big championships, and then I became a head coach over in Vladivostok, Russia, which is a 9-hour flight from Moscow, Russia. When you look at Russia, it's so big.
It's huge.
You can take the United States and put 2 United States from the West Coast to the East Coast side by side, and that's how wide Russia is.
Jeez.
So it's like I say, it's a 9-hour flight from Vladivostok, Russia, to Moscow, and we had to make that flight every time we went on the road because the main airport hubs, 3 of them are in Moscow. So I don't care where you're going in Russia, you got to go through there, and then you get on another flight to go to, say, St. Petersburg or wherever.
Mm-hmm. It's like Atlanta, Coach.
Yeah. So
but
it was
Atlanta
like
9 hours away.
No,
to
it's
give
not
you
9
a
hours
better
away,
idea,
but it's the
it's like flying from Myrtle Beach to L.A. to Hawaii, and then when you get to Hawaii, you got to fly to another island because you still want. In other words, Hawaii is Moscow, Russia, so it takes you say 8 hours to get there. Then you got to go another hour to go to another island.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
I saw, I think, every movie you could watch on an airplane during those 9
With
hours.
subtitles?
No, they were in English.
Okay.
They had ones, yeah, for sure they had them in English.
All right.
I mean, I'd be flying that Aeroflot flight.
Now, did you pick up the language at all?
I could get by. I had a translator, like I said, my first year, and I got to speak it good enough that I actually took the young kids and would teach them English. And of course, it's much easier to teach someone English than to learn a foreign language.
Sure.
At least, over there, what they call American is someone that only speaks one language.
That's right.
And that's, because you feel really ignorant when you get over to Europe because all these people over Europe, they all know 2, 3, 4,
Sure.
some of them 5 languages.
Yeah.
And it's very embarrassing when you can't speak a different language other than English.
Makes you feel a little lackluster?
Mm-hmm.
You ever go to the party feeling that way?
All the time.
All the time?
Yeah, I carry my own lampshade.
We'll be back with more Fireside Chat Radio with Coach Russ Bergman right after this.
History as you've never heard it before. Real stories from real people. This is Fireside Chat Radio.
Hey, we're just living the high life here. Fireside Chat Radio, we get together in a room. Well, it's not just a room. It's like the main dining room here at the Biddle Estate. This is kind of cool.
Well, there's worse places to be.
Yeah, there are. No place like home, right?
That's right.
You
right.
kind of ran around. He ran around the halls here. Probably have some drawings on the walls. Did you ever get in trouble for doing stuff like that, Marshall?
Yeah, when they redid that wallpaper up the stairs there was a black streak about this high from the bottom, about 2.5 feet, all the way up and around. That was before they put, they removed that and put some more in there. Yeah, there was plenty of drawings, and I didn't know any better. I was the third, so
Good examples were not set by your.
Oh no, I mean they had great ideas, and I was the guinea pig, so they would put me in the dryer.
And parents get tired, I hear.
Put me in the dryer
by
and
baby
go around
number 2 or 3, they just let stuff go.
You know.
I was the oldest. I didn't get away with anything.
Right.
That's why I had to get sneaky.
Right.
Yeah, had to get sneaky a little
Well, I'll
bit.
tell you what,
I hear
this is
that.
cool. It's like a mansion. I was raised in an apartment. Every time I smiled, my teeth would hit the wall. It's a horrible thing. Yeah, this is a big place.
Tiny
here, man.
place, yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I grew up in a trailer park. This is we moved so much. We just took the house with us. It just got easier.
No, that's good.
And
Good
it's
idea.
kind of bizarre.
Yeah.
So when my lovely wife got into the campground industry, she goes, Jack, what do you think about me working in the RV and camping industry? I said, hey, I love trailer parks.
Right.
That's right.
I grew up in them. People don't believe that because they go see,
Sure.
am I allowed to say antebellum
Yes.
anymore? Can I say it here and be
Sure,
okay?
of course.
Yeah, it's fine.
Beautiful antebellum home, beautiful 2-story house. But I grew up in the trailer. My brother and sister had it on Easy Street, man,
Right.
when they came along.
Yep.
Well, Thanksgiving, Marshall's two grandboys, our great-grandboys, Levi and Hank, they were here. So they had to have the whole tour. They wanted to know everything. So we took them upstairs, and they saw this. And
I
went in
love
there.
it.
We're going to go in every closet. What's in this door? All that. So they were leaving, and I said, now,
I think you left one in the closet.
no. They were
Yours was
leaving.
scratching
And I said, Hank and Levi, y'all didn't see the whole house. What? I said, yeah, there's really a basement and there's an attic. So there's 2 more floors that the next time
Oh,
you're
how about
here,
that?
we'll show you those because it gets better. And Hank says to me, is it scary in the basement? I
course it
said,
would
probably. He said, we're bringing our flashlights.
Wow. I didn't know there was a basement here.
I didn't
It's
either.
got to be one of the few houses in Conway with a
Not
basement.
many.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a couple.
Yeah.
And what's interesting is, of course, nobody had been living here for, a couple of years. My brother was here for 3 or 4, and so mom and them have been back. So now so my grandchildren had never been in this house. And so
Okay.
and so because we weren't meeting, we were going to the inlet or whatever, and so it ended up, they had a big time.
I bet they
Yeah, big
did.
time.
They did.
Well, there are no more basements anymore. Now they're wine cellars.
That's right.
Yeah,
Everybody
that's
has a
true.
wine
Yeah.
cellar now.
Yeah, where it's nice and cool.
That's right.
We know that Russ Bergman grew up on a farm there in Illinois, out on the prairie. Humble home, small home.
It was this 2-story farmhouse.
Okay.
That actually the people that owned all 3 farms owned that house too.
Sure.
So, yeah, my dad was making big money back then. We got free rent in that house, and he was making $50 a week.
He was doing pretty good.
That's pretty good back then, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. I didn't
There's a lot of work, though.
know.
Yeah.
$50. He got a big raise to $55 a week. I remember that.
Wow.
How about brothers and sisters?
I have an older brother and an older sister and a younger sister.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and they're all still alive, doing well.
That's awesome.
My mom just passed away last spring at the ripe age, almost 97, almost 98.
Wow.
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 That's wonderful.
My dad made it to 92, and Alzheimer's took him down.
Wow.
You know,
Well, that bodes well for you.
yeah, that's some
Mhm.
good
Yeah.
It really
genes.
does on
That's-
both sides.
That's some
Now,
good genes working. You know,
How many people? Who's responsible for your tallness?
some uncles,
No.
more. Well, probably it's both sides. Both sides have some taller people. You know.
So
I say
you
taller
would lay
people.
under the cow and milk it then, right?
Well, luckily,
Like a car.
luckily for me, when I became 6 years old, I was just learning how to milk a cow, and luckily they decided to sell all the dairy cows, so I didn't get stuck milking cows. every morning,
Yeah,
every
you left
evening.
that out of the story a little bit, and
Yeah.
I was hoping not because I had an uncle that was a dairy farmer, and
Yeah,
it was all the time,
yeah,
all the time,
yeah. They
twice a day.
twice a day.
Yeah. I mean, those things will explode if
Yeah.
you don't milk them.
That's
I'm
right.
telling you.
That's right.
Well, in Russia, could you relate to the average fan? I mean, what was the fan like that went to a basketball game?
You got to understand, this was 2004, 2005, and even though they'd been playing basketball in Moscow because CSKA, the #1 team back in the USSR, that actually, upset United States in the Olympics in '72, and of course that's another story I can tell you about putting the team back on for the 3rd time on the court and why that might have happened. But anyway, they really didn't know whether to clap or not to clap. They didn't know what to clap for, and because our team was new, and we had a new arena, and they were learning this as we went along, and they were very blessed because we had a very good team. We finished second in the Russian League to CSKA. That was sponsored by the Red Army, and I used to joke because they had so many former NBA players and some of the best players in Europe or the best players in Russia playing for them. I'd say, well, they needed to sign a new player. They'll just, sell one of the jets or whatever and buy one or whatever. But that's why, as a matter of fact, the Secretary of Defense, he was always showing up at the CSKA games because he loved basketball. And one time Putin showed up, but unfortunately I didn't get close enough to him to meet him. But the guy who was in charge of our security for our team was a former KGB. And over a lot of vodka one night, I heard some interesting KGB stories.
Oh, my goodness.
Oh, I bet.
And you had to be intrigued because you had that passion for the FBI.
That's right. That's
wow.
true.
That had to be really some juicy stuff for you.
All I know, the Russian mafia still exists, and it seems like every spring when the snow melts, some bodies appear. Yeah. So.
Okay. Yeah, it's got to be. They're so new with whatever capitalism they have. I mean, 89 seems like a long time ago, but in the grander scheme of things, when the wall came down.
When I first got over there, there was still, I don't know, maybe 10 to 25%. I'm not sure because at that time I didn't know enough to find out enough. But anyway, there's some people that still wanted to live under communism because it's kind of like being in prison. You get a warm place to sleep and 3 squares a day.
Security.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a people that, basically were the lazy men that didn't want to actually provide for themselves under a democratic society. But, the Russians now, they are enjoying democracy. Well, they don't have quite the version of democracy we do with Putin, but they still have the freedom to come and go as they please. They still control their people somewhat with the Russian visa. In other words, like I know this one woman wanted me to help her get a plane ticket to New York, so I set it up online, and she got to the airport and couldn't leave Moscow to go to New York City because she owed for a parking ticket.
Wow.
So they can that visa yeah. When you get ready to leave the country, they control you with that visa many different ways, and they can either give you a visa so you can leave Russia, or they don't give you the visa.
Kind of like a COVID passport, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh wow, why do you want to go there?
Well,
I'm having fun talking about basketball and Russ Bergman. And
you can't go to Russia.
People and
That's
little
right.
dose of capitalism.
You've got to get the shot.
Here you come with a government controlling me over something.
That's right.
Wow. Ain't nobody got time for that.
Okay. I'm sorry. Let's go back to dribbling. Or dribbling, whatever you want.
Well, we have some great basketball things that are happening here. I look at what the Schneiders are doing. They're making a big impact in some kids' lives.
Jeff Snyder with Hot Shots.
Yeah.
And his son, they've doing an unbelievable great job bringing. They end up soliciting the best players in the nation. And of course, the players know if they'll come to the Hot Shot camp and show their wares, which a lot of college coaches show up for that. So they've got a great thing going. It's good for them. It's good for the kids. And Jeff Snyder has done extremely well with it.
And they're going everywhere. I mean, I didn't realize how big that was.
Yeah, it's all up and down the East Coast.
Yeah,
all
it's insanity.
Yeah.
And that leads us into how the game has changed, because you said you've traveled to all these different countries, and you had alluded to this earlier in our conversations, that kids now at the high school level, they've seen this country, some other countries.
Yeah, with the AAU team.
Yeah.
They call it the AAU travel team, and they go to all these different states. And some of them are fortunate enough. I know John Rose is involved with when they ended up taking teams over to Europe. High school all-star teams. And so But European kids actually, I think, have a chance to grow up a little bit quicker than American kids, because when we travel from North Carolina to, say, Oklahoma, or say from Georgia to North Carolina or whatever, we're speaking the same language. It's maybe a little bit different scenery, but over in Europe, it's a huge difference going from country to country. Say you're going from, say, Spain to Lithuania or to Estonia or wherever, or you're going, you may even be going from, say, Russia to Beijing, China for the Olympics. The international flavor of basketball, and trust me, basketball is all over the world, and they love this game all over the world. It's amazing. I mean, people in Lithuania, they love basketball more than we do. They are completely nuts about basketball, and when their national team's playing, everybody is in front of a TV, and I mean, they're either in beer tents watching it or in their home watching it or wherever. They are just die-hard basketball fans. And that's the one European country that soccer, or they call it football over there, is not the number one sport. But all over, whether it's Spain or Italy or wherever, in China is a big market for professional basketball right now. Mm-hmm. And of course, China, Russia, Turkey, and Spain, they're the countries that are paying the most for professional players to play basketball.
Turkey?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Yeah. That's something. Yeah. Well, they want to win too, buddy.
Turkey's got money. Yeah. Russia's got money.
Right.
China has money.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And Spain is evidently doing still pretty well because they can spend all this money, because it costs a lot of money to support a professional team when you're like in the team I was on with Russia there. Some of these players were making from $1 to $3 million a year for 10 months. Yeah. And so that's what got me over there, is having a chance to make some more money than I was making in the States.
Yeah. Well, on the Olympic side of things, it was always, for me growing up, it was going to be college athletes that played in the Olympics. And then the dream team comes along, and boy, that changed the Olympics.
Well,
it changed how the other teams approach the Olympics.
Well, what happened was, let's go back, say, 40 years ago, maybe 50 years ago. College coaches, whether it was a Dean Smith or Al McGuire, whoever, they would go to, say Milan, Italy, and they would put on a coaching clinic for all the European coaches. So they were doing this all over Europe, bringing American coaches there to teach them the game. Well, these guys were very serious about it. They had basketball but didn't know as much as the American coaches. But whatever we gave them, they took and ran with it, and then they embellished it. And they're no dummies. They can figure out, you got 5 guys on each team, and what can we do, with a pick and roll or whatever. And to me, myself, now that I've been in the European game, or which is the Olympic game, I actually, the rules of the Olympic game is a combination of college and NBA. And to me, it's the best of both worlds. And I enjoy coaching that brand of basketball better than the NBA rules or the college rules. Mm-hmm. And it's very, very popular over in Europe. And these people are crazy about it. I mean, we were playing in Izmir, Turkey, for the Euro Cup Championship. And I mean, before we started the game, I mean, the whole crowd, the whole place in there was just swaying from side to side, singing Turkish songs. They had road flares. They were lit, waving them in the air. I mean, it was crazy.
Flares. See what freedom will get you?
That's right, buddy.
It was crazy. And, so it's serious. Basketball is serious, and they fire and hire coaches in Europe just like we do over here. If you don't win, it doesn't matter, I mean, somebody's got to lose, of course, somebody's got to win, but they don't expect your team to be the loser.
Yeah, right. Don't want that. Can't have that.
Hey, you're done, comrade.
Got to win. They're as fickle as South Carolina is with their football coaches.
Easy.
Yeah.
I mean, it is what it is.
Good night.
I know, right? Just throwing that right out
I'm
there.
telling you what.
He scorned me a moment ago. Now it's your turn.
That's right. COVID passports and Gamecocks. Let's just don't go there.
Gamecock football.
The Gamecocks thought this was going to be the year they're going to finally beat Clemson, right?
Yeah. Didn't happen.
Yeah, it wasn't even close.
Oh, did that make you happy?
No, it didn't.
Okay.
I'm telling you what, Alabama, I was disappointed all game during Alabama till they got to the last drive. And then the fact that all of the Auburn fans were so excited all game and they were wearing Alabama out, yeah, it didn't last long. Thank good. Roll Tide.
So you're an Alabama fan this week?
I am. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I always have been an Alabama fan. So
That's because his grandfather was in class with Bear Bryant. That's the tie with that.
That's a good
That's the connection.
Yeah, there's the connection on Alabama,
Clemson.
the Crimson Tide.
Tide.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, he was a legendary. Russ, have you been in the presence of another coach and you were awestruck? I mean, there's got to be some guys that you really admired for what they did.
When I was a young coach, first of all, Coach Maravich, who was a great X&O coach, a great offensive coach, he loved the history of basketball. And we would talk and he would bring up about Claire B., all the different books that he had written. And like if I'd go to a coaching clinic somewhere, I said, Coach, I want to go to a coaching clinic in D.C. or whatever with all these college coaches coming in because I'm a young coach and I want to learn and find out what everybody else is doing besides just Coach Maravich. So I'd go to a clinic and I'd come back. He said, Rusty, he said, come in here. He said, I want to see what notes you got from your clinic. So I'd show him all my notes, and he'd say, okay, Claire B. invented the 2-3 zone back in 1942 or whatever, and he was giving me all the history behind everything that ever happened in basketball, which is great because it kind of helped me become a basketball historian. But, it's the old saying, there's really nothing new in basketball because somebody has already done it at one time.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
Just like what's going on in the NBA or, it's been going on over in Europe. So there's nothing new in the game. It's just like whether it's a new offense or defense, somebody's already done it at some time. Sometimes there's a little tweak here or there. But there's, whether it's Dean Smith, like when we upset Wake Forest at Wake Forest, we're down by 3 and they are shooting a free throw. And so a play that I learned from Dean Smith, a play that you can call without calling a timeout, like I can call it's called like a 521. I can call that and they'll know exactly what to do without calling timeout. And so we ran that, which meant Richard Scantlebury, who I brought here from London, England, he ended up on the wing shooting a 3. So they make it, we make 2 passes and went boom, boom, boom. And he caught it the 3-point line and shot it and made it and put the game into overtime against Wake. And then in overtime, Scantlebury ended up back at the free throw line. He makes the 2 free throws and we beat Wake at Wake. And this was, you got to understand, this was our first year at Division I. And to beat Wake Forest, an ACC team at Wake Forest, was a huge accomplishment.
Yeah.
And matter of fact, the Atlanta Constitution headlines, Coastal beats Wake, and that gave the score. So, and we have been, luckily the program's been able to mushroom from there.
Yeah, Wake Forest. All those legacy teams up there. The ACC tournament was so huge growing up in North Carolina that for the kids that skipped school, they didn't get in trouble. And for those of us that went to school, they carted televisions into the classroom for us to watch it.
What made the ACC tournament so big was the only way back then there was only like 16 teams in the final 16, not the final 64.
Mm-hmm.
So the conference winner went. Well, sometimes the regular season winner would go, but the ACC voted that the regular season only meant seeding for the ACC tournament. Whoever was a winner of the ACC tournament, they're the one that gets to bid to be in the NCAA tournament. Just like when Pistol Pete was a senior, Dan Issel in Kentucky with Adolph Rupp, we came in second in the SEC. Kentucky came in first, so we didn't get a play in the tournament.
Yeah.
We had to go to the NIT in New York. So with the ACC, that's the only way you could go. Just like if you remember the great game between NC State and Maryland.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
I mean, unbelievable. One of probably the best college game I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And that was what, 103 to 100 was a final or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And an unbelievable great game, and only one team could go. That just, today they got like sometimes 4, even 6 teams out of one conference going into the tournament. So the ACC had so much premium and so much pressure on every team and coach because they wanted to get to the second round. And
absolutely.
then just like Coach Maravich, his claim to fame at Clemson, he finally got Clemson to the finals of the ACC tournament. Didn't win it, but just getting to the finals made him, one of the most successful coaches at Clemson at that time.
Yeah, that had to be huge. It was huge.
Yeah, and so that's why Eric Case brought him to NC State. And then when he was at NC State, he won the ACC tournament and then got beat by Dollar Bill Bradley in the NCAA tournament.
Yeah.
Princeton beat him,
Yeah, those were crazy times.
Yeah.
I mean, and the NIT tournament may have been a better tournament some years for the caliber of teams. That used to be huge. Yeah.
And some teams actually turned down the NCAA tournament to go to the NIT.
Yeah. My, how that game has changed.
Yeah.
How many tournaments do we have now? We've got the NIT, the NCAA, which is.
And you got you got the CBI. You got like 3 different tournaments below the NIT.
Yeah.
And the sad part about to me, the colleges are paying money just to be in it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't go along with that. But anyway.
You got to pay to be in a tournament.
Mm-hmm.
It happens.
Pay to play, here. Baby. That's right.
It's happened here. Well, we're going to take a quick little breather. We'll talk about the media's influence on the game and what Russ is up to these days. Coach Russ Bergman here on Fireside Chat Radio.
Uncovering the mysteries of history. This is Fireside Chat Radio.
Hey, we're back with more Fireside Chat Radio. Coach Russ Bergman is with us. He spent all of our last broadcast and most of this one with us, and we're not going to let him get out of here until we talk about the future of the game of basketball. Boy, it is evolving.
It is. It's still extremely popular, especially the college game, and the feeling that the fans give the game is why college is so popular today. I mean, then get the college crowds in there and all the enthusiasm. The NBA gets that way in the playoffs. Then they have so many, 82 regular season games, plus they have, friendly games or exhibition games prior to the season start. That's a lot of games. And but college game is everybody's still crazy about it.
Sure.
It's a great game to watch, and much like the European game.
I like college hoops more so than the professional hoops.
Well, everybody has their opinion. I know I wasn't as crazy about the pro game until I coached at that level.
Right.
And until you have coached those NBA type athletes in the game, I mean, like when I went from the CBA to a college game, it was like slow motion. Because these unbelievable athletes at the NBA and CBA, or they call it now the G League, Gatorade League. It used to be the NBA Developmental League. They call it the D League now. They call it the Gatorade, the G League, because of Gatorade sponsors it. But anyway, because of that, the game is just such unbelievable athletes. It's just like a lot of people, they thought I was Rudy Tomjanovich. My face is a little bit similar, and so I'd have media come up to me, and they'd be, I could tell the camera was on, and then they'd bring the microphone up and want to interview me. And I said, "Well, who do you think I am?" I said, "Well, you're Rudy T." I said, "Well," I said, "I'm not." I said, "I do coach in the CBA, but Rudy T is like 6'9". I'm 6'3". But when Rudy T is standing in a timeout with all those NBA players, he looks like he's 6'3".
Yeah,
that's
right.
I'm sure he does.
All these other players are, 6'9", 6'10", 7 feet, 7'1", or whatever. And so they assume that he's shorter than what he really is. But when you sit in one of those Gucci seats or a front row seat at an NBA game, then you have a better appreciation for not only how tall and big these players are, but how unbelievable quick and fast they are going up and down the floor compared to a college game, and what they can do at that level. I mean, it's amazing to watch these athletes and what they can do, and especially you got the same 94 by 50 court and the same height goal as far as 10 feet. So they really shrink the court.
Well, next time there's a confusion, you just tell them, say, no, I'm not him, but I did stay at a Holiday Inn last night.
That'll work, yeah.
Let's go with the plan here.
Get the endorsement.
Right.
That's it.
Yeah.
Well, I was thinking as you were talking about basketball in Europe, having lived there, football, and I mean soccer, right? But they play it forever, and it scores 2-1, and it's a lot of more passing than goals. I think basketball is like you can hardly look away to eat your popcorn. You miss something,
right?
And I think that's where it's kind of shifting. It seems to me just from the human element.
Yeah.
Well, that's what John Wooden makes a statement. I've heard John Wooden at several clinics and been fortunate enough to meet him and have dinner with him a couple of times. And he makes a statement, it's a 10-foot goal, and people in the stands can understand the success of somebody putting a round sphere in through that goal, and it counts as success, whether it's 2 points or 1 point or 3 points, and people can identify with that kind of.
Sure.
And so when now in soccer, like he said, you have scores of 2-1 or 3-1 or whatever, but in basketball it can be 103 to 100. Then it's much more exciting to see more scoring in the game. Is a shorter court. That's why I've always said in soccer, I wish they would shorten the field so there'd be more scoring in soccer or something, or widen the goals or something. Because to me, it's kind of like baseball. If you're in on every pitch, the game goes fast. And same way with soccer. If you understand the game like they do in, say, London or they do over in Spain, then it makes that game a lot quicker and faster, and you can be more into it and intense in every kick and the way they move the ball and all that. But like me, I saw Italy play Haiti in the World Cup over in Munich, Germany, and wow, it was like those guys had it on a string, the soccer ball. And it's amazing how good they control the ball compared to the way we do in the States. We're getting better, but we got a long ways to go to catch up with them. Our women's soccer team is there, but
women's soccer over there and over here started at the same time. Men's soccer started way over there, so we're all on the same. The women are all on the same playing level, and the guys are on a different level. But one thing that's interesting, I was involved with the ABA team that was here, the South Carolina Warriors, with Coach Kafalis, and his John Kafalis. I'm assuming
I do.
What a great guy. Sorry we lost him a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
Amazing. But he always said defense wins championships. And that was that team we had. We played defense, and it's not this all offense. You run down, you slam it, you forget about playing defense. They come down and slam it. And at some point, whoever gets, has the ball at the end of the game wins the game. And, we just wore teams out with the defense, and it was always. And we were very successful with it, and that made a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, and Chris Beard, who coached it the year before.
Absolutely.
Who went from here to actually took the job, let's see, a Division II. Division II, and then he ended up getting the job at UNLV, stayed there a couple of days, and then left, took the job at Texas Tech, and now he's at Texas.
Okay, that's right.
But when he was at Texas Tech, that's the reason why I went up to see them play West Virginia, because I knew him well because of him coaching the ABA team here. And, of course, I knew Huggins because I coached against him at Akron, and I coached him against him when he was at Cincinnati. And I got a great story there if we got time to tell it.
Sure, absolutely.
Okay, well, it was our first year of being Division I. We were playing in Akron's holiday tournament. And I think we played Alabama State the first game and won, and Akron played some directional school or whatever. I love that term. Jim Balbana used to say Northern Illinois or Southeastern Louisiana, all these directional schools. That's who you need to get on your schedule early. Like they're typical cupcake compared to NC State.
Murray State was the name of that team.
Marathon.
That Chris got hired by Murray State.
I thought he went to a different team.
That was that first team, and he didn't even like show up there, and then he left and went to and then Texas Tech called and then to Texas.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's done well. Listen, those jobs you got to take when those guys call.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Huggins, anyway, to get back to the story with Huggins, we were playing in his tournament at Akron. So we ended up playing them in the championship game and went right down the wire. And they had a kid named Dowdell, and he makes a three and beats us by 1 or 2 points. So that spring I go back up there to Akron because they have an AAU tournament going on, and so I recognize the Akron assistant, and he says, "Coach, what you doing up here?" I said, "Well, I'm looking for a point guard." He said, "Well, this AAU tournament going on." He said, "Remember Dowdell that made that three against you?" I said, "Sure I do." He said, "Well, his little brother's playing in this tournament, and he's a heck of a point guard." He said, "You need to look at him." So the kid's name was Robert Dowdell. So I looked at him and I said, "Wow." I said, "This kid is a good player." So I immediately went to the kid's house after the tournament, met with him and his mom, and invited him down to visit to Coastal Carolina. Well, his older brother was the one that made that shot for Akron. Well, Huggins hadn't offered him a full ride yet. Well, we offer him a full ride. He ends up staying and committing to us and signs with us instead of with Huggins because he was ticked off because Huggins didn't offer him earlier. Well, to make a long story short, we play Cincinnati when Huggins is there. They had beaten at Cincinnati, they had beaten Louisville at Louisville, who was like first or second in the nation on like Thursday night. So we play them on Saturday night in the brand new arena in Cincinnati. It's got 2 levels, 2 restaurants on the end, different levels, a beautiful new arena there. And the place is packed. I mean, packed to the gills. And they're paying us $30,000 to come up there. And of course, they thought they were buying a win, of course. And which most of the time when they pay guaranteed money, they end up getting a win. Well, the game's going on, and my high school coach comes over from Illinois and brings another man with him who happens to be a priest. So they're sitting on my bench. So all at once we find ourselves, we're down by 13 with 6 minutes to go. So Huggins, I could tell looking down there, he's kind of thinking, the game's over with. And I knew we could make a run, especially with the 3-point shot. It's never over.
Mm-hmm.
So they miss or we steal the ball, we come down, make a three. We do that. We do that 4 times. Boom, boom, boom. All at once, we're down by 1. And the game's on. So we end up with the ball. We're down by 1. And, we're down by 2. And so I call timeout and set up a play for Brian Penny to shoot a 3 at the top of the key. Well, the play works. Brian gets the ball. It's like wide open the top of the key, but when it's passed to him, he can't quite find the handle. And right as he finally gets it, he gets ready to shoot it, here comes one of those unbelievable athletes from Cincinnati, and he blocks it out of bounds right in front of our bench. Well, didn't have any timeouts. I said, just get the ball into Dowdell. Pass into Dowdell. He's got 2 guys all over him. He double pumps it, 17-degree angle, bank, and it goes in. And that means like 2 seconds to go. They're so shocked. The place goes completely silent. They didn't even call timeout. Buzzer goes off. We win the game. I was so excited. I jump up and start running to the locker room, except I ran the wrong way. I was going across the court the other way instead of our locker room. So then I had to turn around and come back and shake Huggins' hand, which I looked like a complete idiot. But anyway.
That's great.
Yeah.
Oh, man, what a way to end the game.
He wanted to beat, Dowdell wanted to beat Huggins. And then now Huggins is in the Coastal Carolina Athletic Hall of Fame. Not Huggins, Dowdell is.
Dowdell, yeah.
Because he was such a great point guard. He's the
That's
best point guard
awesome.
our program's had.
Well, we touched on ladies soccer. The WNBA has given a tremendous opportunity for a lot of athletes. Big contract up the road in Columbia. I don't know what Ray Tanner's thinking. We grew up together. I'm scratching my head on that one.
Well, I think she's worth every penny.
Is she?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, she was a great college and WNBA player herself, and she's done an unbelievable great job making University of South Carolina women's program a major power. They're like Connecticut now.
Yeah.
Yep.
And she's got the.
Where do you
package.
see the game going, as far as the WNBA goes?
I think because of women's rights and everything else, it's just going to get bigger and better and stronger. Okay. And I mean, you see the women's game continues to get better and better every year, whether it's a college level or pro level or whatever. And I mean, you look at Coastal Carolina's women's program now compared to back when we were NAIA, it's like total night and day. I mean, just like our women's volleyball team, they're bringing all these players in from all the Scandinavian countries. And I mean, they're winning not only the Big South, but now they're winning the Sun Belt every year with women's volleyball. I mean, now it's not, you don't just recruit nationally, you go all over the world bringing in players now, whether they're men or women. And so I think because our world's getting smaller because of the travel, I think the game just continues to get better, at every level.
So there will be at one time a Michelle Jordan. Huh? Is that what
Could be.
Yeah.
I mean, for the beauty of the game,
really?
I mean, the WNBA game is fun to watch.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing about the WNBA game. There's only one or two girls in the league that can dunk it or do dunk it while it's live. That you see, that's why a lot of people actually like to watch the women's college game, because the fundamentals stick out
They do.
so much more, and they really appreciate that. And and also the women's game had the 30-second clock much earlier than the men's.
Yeah.
And now I was glad to see finally the 30-second clock get to the men's. Unfortunately, only thing unfortunate with it is the rich get richer when the clock gets shortened.
Sure.
If it ever goes to 24, to even be. It's just like the thing I don't really like what's going on in college athletics today is this transfer portal.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because you could, just like Coastal Carolina, Cliff Ellis does a great job, brings a great point guard in. He becomes a Sun Belt Player of the Year, and because of the transfer portal, he's now the point guard with University of Michigan. Yeah. And doesn't have to be penalized and set out a year. He's just immediately eligible, and it's happening in football, it's happening in basketball, in all sports, and the rich get richer on it.
Yep.
Do you want to play at Coastal Carolina, or would you rather play at Duke? So it makes it very, very difficult, number one, to recruit the kid, but number two, to keep the kid when there's no penalty for transferring. That I just don't go along with that.
Yeah, sure.
It's kind of like I was really disappointed the way the big boys treated Coastal when it came to handing out bowl bids last year. The bowl we got compared to what I thought Coastal Carolina University should have gotten.
Sure.
Oh, yeah. That was
Yeah, that puts the student athlete in charge instead of the coach. That kid all of a sudden, I can go here and they're going to pay me X number of dollars for my likeness versus, again, as the coach, you can sign off on that transfer, let them sit out for the year. I mean, we had a kid that came here from Albany, Anthony Raffa.
Right.
And he sat out a year and was one of the greatest guards that we had. And then he went and did a amazing job over in Italy. He was even playing in Iran and that kind of stuff. Yeah. Just what a great professional career overseas. Yeah. But, it would have been nice to have had him for those, 2 years when he came and moved. But, now I think he's the head coach at Albany. Is that right?
I think that's right.
That's right. Or no, he's not at Albany. He's at his high school.
Yeah.
He's the head coach at his high school that he played for. So, great kid, real nice guy.
Yeah, phenomenal family, everything. Just and a hell of a player.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great kid.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Outstanding.
Well, we've seen a lot of great kids come through Coastal Carolina. We've seen a lot of great basketball through here, and we've only just begun.
No question.
Appreciate you, Coach Russ Bergman, for all that you've done for the community through the years. Good to see you out and about, joining us here on Fireside Chat Radio.
Well, we've been very, very fortunate to bring in some great student athletes, and they have made me a pretty good coach.
Now, where's your next stop?
That's a good question. Of course, my wife wants me to completely retire.
Of course.
I play a lot of golf. If the right situation came, whether it was in the States or over in Europe, I would probably go back to the bench. But to keep from being completely bored right now, I do have a security business, and I sell life insurance. Basically, I can help people plan their retirement, whether you sell them annuity or mutual funds or whatever. So I do that to keep from being bored. And of course, like I said, I play a lot of golf. But anyway, we're just, we moved back here in 2003 when I was scouting for the Utah Jazz. And we love the beach, love the people here, and we were glad to move back, and we're happy here.
Thanks for spending some time with us.
All right, thank you for having me.
Russ Bergman, everybody, on Fireside Chat Radio. Give me
all right. I guess I'll see you back at the grocery store then, huh?
There you go.
Aisle 3.
Everybody has an MVP card,
Clean
so don't
up
feel
on
special.
aisle 3.
And that concludes this edition of Fireside Chat Radio. We'll see you again real soon.